With their spring break-in show in a couple of weeks, Tuesday's NXT was about setting up the first challenger for Carmelo Hayes in the NXT Championship. We had a very good main event four-way with Grayson Waller, Dragon Lee, JD McDonough, and Duke Hudson. And how Hudson ended up in that match is during a Chase University segment in the ring earlier where Andre Chase awarded Hudson with a trophy for most valuable player for how he helped them beat the Schism at Stand and Deliver. During that segment, Bron Breakker randomly walked out to the ring and interrupted, and he said, "Everybody must be wondering why I'm not in the four-way match later in the show." He said he doesn't need the title because it was a curse on his career. He said that he also doesn't need the approval of the scumbag fans anymore, so if you were wondering whether that was an actual heel turn last week, there's your answer. It's weird because he had every right to destroy Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams for cheating to beat him at Stand and Deliver and basically stealing his title. And yet they're cheered as the babyfaces and Braun is the heel for retaliate. Or Braun, thinking Braun Strowman. Braun is the heel for retaliating. It's kind of ass backwards. But he called the fans scumbags, and so that makes him a heel now. He then politely offered the open fourth spot in the number one contenders match to Duke Hudson. And Hudson accepted. And Breakker went to go give him a spear. Andre Chase ended up eating the spear instead. And Hudson hightailed it out of the ring with his trophy. So poor Andre took the bullet for him. As hokey as it is, Hudson finally found something that works for him with this Chase U stuff, which is good for him because I don't think he had many chances left if this failed. It kind of reminds me of Tyler Breeze. And he used to talk about how he tried so many different things and went through different kind of personalities and gimmicks and developmental, and nothing was sticking. And I don't know if he was told this or if he just felt this way, that he had one shot left. And it was the Tyler Breeze gimmick that basically saved his career and led to him working there for many more years and getting a run on the main roster. And so for Duke Hudson, you try these different things and they don't work, and you just get to a point where if this doesn't work, there's a lot of people nipping at your heels who could take your spot, and this may be the end. He had a cup of coffee on the Raw roster in the early days of the pandemic. He was tagging with Shane Thorne as a couple of MVP's associates. That was back during when he was going by the name Brendan Vink. That didn't last long. Then he got sent back down to NXT, and he got rebranded as Duke Hudson, and they gave him a poker gimmick. That didn't last very long, so then he got dragged into the relationship stuff with Persia Pirotta and Dexter Lumis and Indy Hartwell when NXT was going through its horny phase. And then he ended up joining Chase University. But for Braun, him calling the NXT title a curse and saying that he doesn't want to challenge for it is still has me thinking he is destined for a main roster call-up very soon, possibly in the upcoming draft. And I think him getting called up as a heel is better than him getting called up as a babyface. I like it. I like the heel turn. He'll have more fun as a heel. He'll get to cut promos as a heel, which I feel he'll be really good at. He has that intensity about him. He's very loud. I just think that will lend itself better to him cutting heel promos. And over time, if he gets over, the eventual babyface turn will mean more. I will say Cora Jade came out later on in the show. She cut a long promo calling out half the women's division. She talked about Zoe Stark and Roxanne Perez and Gigi Dolan, Tiffany Stratton, Indy Hartwell, and the weird bird lady, or the weird bird girl, Lyra Valkyria, who finally came out to shut her up. It established her as the top heel in the women's division. And with Braun going heel, I'm not saying it has to happen now. I don't even think he'll be down there long enough for it to happen in NXT, but Braun and Cora, they're an item in real life. The two of them as an on-screen heel couple could get some great heat. Von Wagner lost to Ilya Dragunov like he's been losing most of his matches recently. Only this time, Robert Stone added the stipulation that if Wagner lost, he would lose Stone as his manager, and that's exactly what happened. So not only has he lost most of his recent matches, he lost his manager now. It definitely feels like they have soured on this guy, and we have heard Triple H and Shawn Michaels in the past say that if guys don't show improvement in 6 months, they have these 6-month evaluations, they're going to cut bait and move on. So I would be worried if I were him. Frankly, I would be just as worried if I was Robert Stone. But here's the thing with old Von. He's not bad. He's not bad. He can work. And he's got size, which they like, but he's boring. And he should not be within 10 feet of a microphone. He needs to have a manager. If it's not going to be Robert Stone, then it needs to be somebody else. But the other thing he needs, and I'm being serious when I say this, he needs a mask. And I'm not saying the man is ugly. I think that if they go for the Kane vibe with him, where he doesn't speak, he has someone else speaking for him, but he just stands there all tall and intimidating, and you got to get the mannerisms down. But if he does that, and he does power spots where he destroys people, I think he would get over easier. I really do. Put a cool-looking mask on this guy, have him start destroying people, and only his manager can control him and stop him, and I think it would do him a world of good. See, there's something I bet you weren't expecting to hear. Solomonster coming to the defense of Von Wagner and trying to save this guy's job. I'm just trying to look out for the guy. Tiffany Stratton against Sol Ruca. They had a match on Tuesday. That is going to be one of those matches we look back on, I think, in 3 to 5 years when they're wrestling each other on the main roster and thinking, this is where it all started. These two are two of the brightest female standouts they have in developmental right now. Ruca, her athleticism is off the charts. I mean, it is ridiculous. She just hasn't put it all together yet because she hasn't been doing it for very long. And this match here was meant less to be a showcase for her and more for Tiffany Stratton, who I still think is going to be the NXT Women's Champion soon. So she picks up the win with the Christopher Daniels best moonsault ever. We also had a couple of debuts on the show. Eddie Thorpe, the former Carl Fredericks out of the New Japan LA dojo. He was also the waiter who got a bottle smashed over his head by Roman Reigns in the Bloodline Goodfellas parody. After 4 years with New Japan, he decided not to renew with them. He signed an NXT deal in January. He has incorporated his Native American heritage into his character. The Thorpe name comes from Jim Thorpe, the first Native American to win a gold medal for the U.S. in the Olympics. He's got a ways to go, but he started out here with a win. And then later on in the show, we had the debut of Tank Ledger. What a fucking name. Tank Ledger. This is Joe Spivak. He was signed as part of the company's first NIL class, Next in Line, where they sign athletes right out of college. I believe he is the first from the NIL program to make it to TV. He's a 6-foot, 300-pound football player from Northwestern. He's got a little over a dozen matches under his belt so far. He has spent most of that time on Level Up. This was his first match on the main NXT show, and I'll tell you what, he showed some good explosiveness in the ring. He showed good charisma in his loss to Joe Coffey, and even in the back before the match. He was showing good charisma. He's got a long way to go, too. This was only his first appearance, but I think there's promise there. In the main event 4-way, it was another good night for Dragon Lee. He's looked even better on the television show in the last couple of weeks than he did in the 5-way at Stand and Deliver. He actually had the match won after a powerbomb when Grayson Waller snuck back into the ring, hit him with a rolling stunner. Lee fell out of the ring, and Waller stole the pin on Duke Hudson to earn the right to challenge Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship next Tuesday. We've already seen Waller challenge twice for the NXT title this year, and both times he failed. And then he failed against Johnny Gargano at Stand and Deliver. Hayes just won the title, so he's not dropping it this quickly. What I will draw your attention to is the date of this match, April 25th, which is only, 3 days or so before the start of the WWE Draft, where they have said every superstar is eligible to be drafted. There's no reason that shouldn't include NXT talent. So this looks to me like them getting one last match out of Waller before he gets the inevitable call-up. And if they have a list of NXT, talents that they're calling up or considering calling up, there really is no reason that he shouldn't be at or near the top of that list.